What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I am Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me I have some more RPG horror stories. Did you know that your boy Morrow might be participating in potentially maybe a collab here and there? I don't want to give away too much of anything until it's final, but I think 2025 is going to be the year that I'm actually going to step out of my comfort zone, or this volcanic island. 2024 has been absolutely dog water for me. It was the worst year that I've ever had. The only things I'm happy about this year is one, I'm still doing this channel, and two, I finally got to say hi to a couple of content creators such as Blue Goblin Marketplace, D&D Doge, and Crow's Purge. Getting to say hello to the content creators that inspired me to make this channel right here is just, it's insane. But I don't want to talk about this year anymore. I want to get some good quality, probably disastrous RPG horror stories that we can read together, starting with the first one for today. Unreasonable, disgusting behavior. So this DM my significant other dealt with had all kinds of really restrictive rules for his campaign, which I saw as red flags during the session 0, and promptly dropped out of the campaign due to. Like, bro, really hardcore restrictive magic in general. What rules like limited uses on cantrips, banning cantrips such as prestidigitation for being too OP? Using all your daily spell slots gives you 2 levels of exhaustion? Hold on 1 second. Before we really get into the meat and potatoes, prestidigitation is overpowered. In which universe is that? If you look at prestidigitation, I'll put up somewhere on screen, you'll be able to read it for yourself. I'm gonna try to go from memory. It lets you make a very light sensory effects, very light noises, a little bit of a shower of sparks for the flare, you know, a little bit of a trick basically. You can enhance food and give it some flavor for like, I think an hour, or like 1 cubic meter of food or whatever. You can light a torch, or you can put it out, or a candle that's within your distance, you know, of 10 feet. You can soil something, and you can dry something, like you just walked out of a bog. You just be like, oh, my shoes are all dirty. Whoop, prestidigitation, no longer dirty. And then you can make like a little tiny little trinket. That's about it. And like, I don't think that means like you can make like a little lockpick. I know some people, oh, okay, maybe I can see that specific thing. Maybe some players might be like, oh, DM, can I make a little lockpick? It's like, no, because thieves tools exist. You can make a lockpick, buy thieves tools and use that. Is that why it's considered overpowered? Because of that last bit with like tiny innocuous things that really don't have any effect. It's a cantrip, for crying out loud. You're not conjuring like an actual set of tools or something. That's an artificer feature. The 2 levels of exhaustion is also really dumb, but like limiting cantrips. Oh, I'm gonna use thaumaturgy on you to make my voice boom. So scary. You better limit that, DM, or else I'm gonna use it to make everybody go deaf or something. So dumb. As someone who's gonna play a ranger, a character with an already limited number of spell slots, I just didn't feel up to it, since I'm likely to use my spell slots quickly for crap like Hunter's Mark. Bro also killed one of our players first session. Now, that wouldn't necessarily be too bad, but it was explicitly because the character had gotten spotted by violent guards. Bro didn't just die though. He was hit with a single arrow at level 1, and it went through his eye and killed him instantly. Not like a lucky crit that did enough damage to insta-kill either. He just had the character killed off. He did the same to my significant other's character later on, just killing him off. I explained that closer to the end. Why are you being so mean to your players? Who hurt you? Suddenly we just gonna be changing the rules? Oh, you do like, what, 7 points of damage? Okay, a guard's turn. The guard, you rolls an attack with a crossbow. Oh, they hit. They don't hit for 5 points of damage. They take out your eye, go through your brain, and because your brain is damaged, you're instantly killed. Ha ha ha. Why is this like rules for me but not for thee kind of thing? What is going on here? Oh, can the players do the same thing? If you flavorfully describe that you roll attack with a short sword and you're stabbing the guy in the heart, can you get an insta-kill too? Is that how it works? This is silly. So my significant other's patron, which in this DM's world, every magic user had a patron, because people couldn't naturally have magic, was rather evil and saw them in a sexual nature. This ended up being bad because the DM played out dream sequences for all the PCs. For my significant other's dream sequence, their patron snuggled them. Not like Fade to Black either. He played out the scene graphically, explaining the sensation in front of the entire party, with absolutely no prior warning or consent from anyone. including my significant other, who was the player being treated this way. I was livid, but my significant other still chose to remain after they and another player confronted the DM about the possession. Why would you want to remain this sort of thing? And like, okay, if you want your campaign or your game to be a little bit more gritty to the point where the horrible things happening to people are like normalized and this is just part of everyday living, if the players are on board with it and they want to have that kind of like really grim, dark, and everything is horrible, everything is terrible campaign, if everybody is on board with it and consents to it, that's one thing. Do whatever you want for your private games. When you don't even let people know the kind of expectations you have for this game, what kind of things that can happen about this sort of thing, or even discuss with players like, hey, are you okay with your patron being a little bit more attracted to you in less than a flirtatious way and more like a carnal way, you know, like a, you get what I mean. There should be some sort of a discussion about it at least. It'd be one thing if the player was like, hey DM, I want a, for whatever reason the player decides, I want a patron that wants to fiddle my diddle like a can of Pringles. Whatever that's supposed to mean, but you get what I mean, right? They want to do the weird creepy stuff like for them for whatever reason, and like it's gonna be up to the DM at that point, but like nothing was checked like that. Everybody's playing a game and suddenly the DM just drops this box of fetishes and just like unleashes it and then just goes full hamster with describing with such gratuitous detail. You don't do surprise fetish kind of thing. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they were just cranking it under the desk. The very last session, my significant other and a few friends who were made through the campaign played in. The DM had put his favorite evil NPC out in the open in front of my significant other's character and a couple of party mates. One of the party mates had accepted a hit on that NPC, and they were shown to take their job seriously and not dilly-dally, so they immediately attempted and succeeded killing him. The DM was mad, and a fight broke out between the guards and those 3 players. That was okay, since it was out in the open. What's not okay is that the players won the fight, barely escaped the area, and got to the docks, and last second, the DM had them be surrounded and killed without a fight. His players successfully dealt with the consequences, and he off-screened them. So, yeah, really bad DM experience, and I noped out of that before the really horrid crap, but still heard about it weekly due to my significant other and a couple of newer friends at the time still playing. This DM is a yikes. Why are they getting mad? If the whole point is to get a hit on the NPC, and the NPC is out and about, and they rolled well, and they got the hit that they're supposed to get, why is the DM being so mad about it over it? Why are they being pissy? If that was the objective, you can't be mad at your players for completing the objective and then just doing everything you possibly can to try to off-screen death them in a cutscene that they can't do anything about. What is the point then? Now the characters are dead. The story can't continue, except unless you just want to play by yourself without any of the players conducting and role-playing your own little characters doing their own character things, then hey, be my guest, have fun. I consider writing a book instead of playing D&D. But this, yeah, everybody else should have immediately noped out. This sounds like a disaster. Anyway, let's get to the next story for today. Former friend creates a group to copy my group's characters and play them better. I honestly never thought I'd be posting here, as the vast majority of my games have managed to be normal enough until recently. The name and the story were changed. For context, I've started playing D&D 5th edition in early 2023, and I had a blast researching lore and tinkering with ideas for my first character. After a few one-shots and short campaigns, I managed to land a spot in a game that seemed perfect for me. Roleplay-oriented, lore-heavy story set in the Forgotten Realms, and running a homebrew set of modules that had the party zipping across the continent and solving arcane mysteries. The group consisted of 5 of us players at the DM. Everyone created really interesting characters with cool, quirky traits, and each had our role to play in some of the mystery that we were facing. The first 10 or so sessions ran well, until one of our players, Jenna, who was playing a high-elf archfey warlock, needed to take a break from the campaign for 2 to 3 sessions for personal reasons. The party was sad to see her go, even if briefly, but she had an interesting idea on how to cover for her short absence. As her character was possessed with a tulpa that was released as a result of one of our missions, she thought that a different person, Steve, a mutual friend of mine and hers who was thus far not in the campaign, could run her character in her absence, explained as a tulpa having full control over the warlock during this time. The DM thought it was a cool idea and even mentioned the possibility of Steve returning later on a mini arc that could finish the storyline. So we have a group of players that are going through a campaign, Forgotten Realms and everything like that, and one of the players has to step out, but somebody else is coming in, the Steve person. Are they another player, another person, or are they like a NPC around with the DM? I'm still kind of unclear. I'm gonna go under the assumptions it's a whole other person that is coming over to take over for the character and run the character, basically. That's just under my assumptions. Maybe there's a misunderstanding from me, or maybe it's completely different. I don't know. But I'm just gonna go with these assumptions for now, unless the info is changed.
The first session with the replacement Warlock ran pretty smoothly, and Steve ran a very cool, if slightly unnerving imitation of the character's voice and mannerisms, as a result of knowing Jenna for a long time and being able to mimic her decently well. And while nobody expected him to pull out all the stops, he really did, and did so with joy. In the final session, in which he was going to stand in for our Warlock, he even dropped off hints that he discussed with our DM, which we could later use in a fight for Tulpa in their true form. Thanks, Morrow, for not covering this and making the editor Morrow cover this, you jerk.
Once Jenna came back, it was business as usual for a few weeks. Steve did message both of us a few times asking if he could join the campaign in earnest with his own character, as he really grew to like the group and our dynamic. We asked the DM as well as Lauren, the player hosting our game, about this. While the DM was happy to have them join, Lauren was worried about not having enough room in her very, very small apartment, and mentioned that she'd be happy for Steve to join if someone else could host the game. Jenna and I passed this back to Steve, who did not seem particularly bothered either way, and said it was not a big deal, that he would find a different group, and that seemed the end of it. It wasn't. About 2 months later, Jenna had to miss a session, and both the DM and Lauren offered to have Steve join if he wished for another piece of the Tulpa storyline. He agreed. However, unlike the first 3 sessions that he took part in, where he was engaged, focused, and did his best, this time around he was dismissive, disrupted the game with weird meta humor, made snarky remarks about the way the other players roleplayed their characters, and mumbled cryptic comments under his breath. This made everyone really uncomfortable, and in order to, as we put it, not end up on RPG horror stories, we decided not to invite him back and let Jenna act as both her Warlock and the Tulpa upon the conclusion of that storyline. Boy howdy dowdy, that's hilarious that this ends up on RPG horror stories. That's actually funny. That's genuinely funny. Not funny the fact that Steve became a problem and was being snarky and stuff. You guys did the right thing. If a player has a weird behavior quirk where instead of being friendly and just join part of the campaign, they're being snarky and weird and really uncomfortable for everybody, yeah, you probably should just ask him not to join back in and not to have them back in. Because if he is just going to be doing this the whole time, like, I can understand why that wouldn't be fun. I wouldn't want somebody at the table just being dismissive and snarky and whispering cryptic things like, oh, your characters could have just done better this way, blah, 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 blah. I would have done this a different way, a much better way, blah, 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 blah. Man, if unless you're here to play, like, cut the attitude. The attitude and your behavior is completely unnecessary. We're trying to have fun. You can engage or you can leave and just not join in instead of being a snarky, wonky, wakey, baby. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Anyway, Steve's behavior is just not okay. Let's continue. The task fell to Jenna and I to have to tell Steve that his comments made the others uncomfortable and that he would unfortunately not be welcome back. He was short, if slightly annoyed with me, but didn't argue and stopped replying shortly afterwards. He did say more in return to Jenna in their chats, however, including a long, insulting tirade about how shallow, vapid, and one-dimensional she made the Warlock, and how he was doing a lot better portraying her. Furthermore, despite our continued attempts to work things through and figure out what went wrong, he continued distancing himself from us. Jenna and I was saddened at the apparent loss of friendship, partially because Steve never showed any signs of this kind of behavior before. But after a mutual talk amongst the 3 of us, we decided it was better to leave it be now while things were still somewhat civil. And the story ends with a happy ending. Oh wait, there's like more paragraphs for this thing. But yeah, for real, honestly, I feel like there should have been red flags with Steve. That, or he's one of those people that secretly think himself as a better than others. Or maybe he just got like so far in his head from the couple of times that he played your character as this Tulipa, I think. Some sort of like I guess like an infection or something. I don't know what a Tulipa is. But anyway, from the little experience that he had puppeteering Jenna's character for a few brief moments. He suddenly got him in his head like, I could have done things better. Your characters are vapid and devoid of any personality. I could have done things better to roleplay your character. Yeah, cool, bro. I really don't care. It's my character. You're making everybody feel weird with your weird mumbling and stuff like that. Seriously, all you had to do is just drop the attitude, not being such a weird dick about this whole thing. Like, seriously, he's being a weird dick about this for no reason. If he was only pleasant, or at least self-aware, and realized that, you know, maybe I shouldn't be doing that, and yeah, it's probably the wrong thing. Maybe things could have changed differently, but no, he immediately goes for some sort of roleplay character attack, saying, oh, you don't roleplay character better, I could roleplay a character better. That's cool, bro, that's not the problem. You're literally being weird at the table, making everybody feel weird and uncomfortable. No matter how good of a roleplayer you are, if you're a terrible person and you're unlikable to be around, people don't want to roleplay with you or do anything with you. They just don't want to have you here in general. Even if you were the greatest roleplayer in the world, if you're gonna be a prick to people, they don't want you around at this point because you're being weird, making everybody feel uncomfortable. People want to be with somebody that's pleasant and enjoyable, not with your weird behavior, that's for sure. Just like previously, things returned somewhat to normal for a while. The campaign was going strong, the roleplay and the character interactions were getting better and better. We had a lot of fun just being able to kick back and relax after a long week. Around this time, Steve messaged both Jenna and I apologizing for his behavior at this most recent appearance in the game, and asked if he could speak to the rest of the group as well. After checking with them, we all had a group call where he admitted to being hurt but not being allowed to join, letting it fester and saying things he did not mean out of frustration. He claimed he had gotten over it after some time with his new group and some therapy. As a friendly gesture, we were hoping to bury the hatchet, he offered to book us a night at the game room at local game store that had all the bells and whistles for amazing tabletop experiences. And while he did not explicitly state that he would do this for the DM, letting him finish his storyline as a tulpa, he did his best to phrase it indirectly. However, we weren't comfortable with him paying for it all, so we calculated the per person cost and paid him back. It was a thought that counted anyways. It looked to be a perfect resolution. How foolish we were! Upon our arrival at the game room, we were delighted to find it had plenty of space, as well as amazing terrain, minis, mood lighting, and much more. Steve was there first along with 5 other people. When all of us arrived, he mentioned that they were his friends from his new campaign, that they, being new players, wanted to watch the game unfold and hopefully get some inspiration from it. As the room was massive and he did his best to organize everything, we had no issue with it at the time. We were too excited to play and see the storyline to its conclusion. I have a question regarding to the title. Is Steve just rounding a bunch of new players to basically watch the game so they could see who they're supposed to play as the characters? Because like from what the title basically describes is they're supposed to basically like be the characters from the party was supposed to be now handed over, or I guess copied and given to this new players for Steve's ultimate game. Is this really what's going on here? Is Steve trying to get the other newbies to scout the characters so they can memorize how the characters are, so they can play them in their own campaign later? I hope not, because that sounds absurd as hell. But you know what? I guess one way to do is to keep reading and find out. After a 5-hour session, the tulpa was finally defeated, and all of us had fun, interesting moments with our characters, and couldn't wait for the next session. We thanked Steve and all seemed well. This is all until the 5 spectators started laughing at us. It wasn't long until Steve joined into the mockery. They then revealed to us that for the past 3 months, they've been playing our characters in a campaign of their own, and were aghast at how terrible our performances and roleplay were compared to theirs. Wait a minute. Am I getting this correct? Steve basically brought his new D&D buddies to be mean bullies on a playground at a TTRPG store and just go, ha ha, your characters are stupid, you don't play your characters right. Is that really what he did? Is that really that? There's no way. This has to be fake. This has to be. I just can't imagine people actually going out of the way to do this. It sounds cartoony, and I really hope it's not real, because it would be so embarrassing if that actually happened. If somebody actually gathered a bunch of people just to be like, haha, you roleplay your characters wrong, haha, just to try to be like some sort of epic own or something. That is cringe beyond the grave. We at first thought it was a joke, and Steve was known for pulling elaborate pranks before. That was until they started acting out, in my opinion, poor imitations of our characters' voices, quoting their backstories and pulling out their fixed versions of the character sheets with more optimal feats, magical items, and higher stats. They briefly clarified that Steve told them of our wasted potential with our characters and how they made a group specifically to do what we were doing, but better. We were speechless. For one moment, we thought they were on one of those old candid camera shows. Jenna and I quietly apologized for Steve's behavior, as we considered ourselves partially responsible for all this, and tried to leave the store. That's when we discovered that Steve had not paid for the use of the room, only the holding deposit for an open date ticket. While opinions were mixed on whether or not we should contest it with the owner, as we did pay our share to Steve well in advance, Jenna and I agreed to cover it between ourselves, and the rest of the group pitched in for their drinks, snacks, and etc. So the guy just does all this elaborate thing, all this elaborate scheming, forces them to pay for the rented room and space and everything, makes them play through the finale of the campaign, just so him and his like bunch of bully friends just be like, haha, you roleplay your character's wrong, look at my character sheet, it's so much better than your character, I have more optimized feats. For the revenge? Really? What does he find minions like this? Who in the right mind's like, yeah, Steve, what you're telling right now is extremely optimal and definitely better. I definitely want to be part of this weird cartoony bully scheme. Who agrees to this? This is cringe. Like I said, I'm hoping this is actually a made-up story and stuff, because if this happened in reality, I'd feel secondhand embarrassment from Steve and everybody else there. I would want to literally bury myself under the ground from the amount of cringe. This is the cringiest thing that anybody could ever do at any certain moment ever in their life. More cringe would be Steve literally thinking they'd be like, I showed them. This is exactly what they deserve. Dude, that's cringe. You're wasting your time doing this stupid, petty nonsense, like school cartoon bully thing. To do all that just to go, haha, why? Waste of your time, waste of your effort. I don't even have the word to describe other than absolutely unironic, brain rotten cringe with no self-awareness. It took us a while to really come to terms with what happened. While it would be fun to be able to say that we got back at him or did something cool in response, we did not. Our next session was cancelled, and we took the time to discuss what happened. Jen and I apologized for allowing him back into the group, but the rest of the group insisted on it not being our fault. For a while, we felt like something was taken from us, and the whole experience felt like such a massive breach of privacy, decency, trust, and what we thought was friendship. We didn't play for a while after that. However, after a month-long hiatus, DM and Lauren insisted on us meeting again. That night our party awoke in a dreamy haze somewhere in the Feywild, with some of their memories gone. They were a little worse for wear and terribly confused, just like we were IRL, but they decided to pick themselves up and keep at it, just as our little friend group did as well. P.S. To hell with Steve. All my homies hate Steve. You can count me as one of your homies because I genuinely hate Steve. I can't imagine a person doing this unironically and not being so self-aware. Dude is just wasting his own time and everyone else's time just to pretend being like the Simpsons. The one guy that goes, ha ha, from Simpsons. That's literally what he is. He's just that unironically cringe guy with no self-awareness that he literally spent all this time finding people that are stupid enough, idiots enough to follow his stupid ploy for pettiness. It's the most stupidest thing to ever do. I'm kind of hoping this is a fake story for one reason only. The reality of somebody like Steve existing and actually doing this unironically without any self-awareness whatsoever, and understanding that they're doing this for the sake of petty revenge, just for the sake of petty revenge, that makes me want to crawl into a hole and never return from the amount of unironic, just skin-crawling cringe. But you can count me as one of your homies. I hate Steve too. Steve is a petty little bitch that is not important. He wants to be important. He wants everybody to look at him and to think of himself as, oh, I'm the greatest. But really he's not. He's just a loser. And I'm glad you guys are forgetting about him. Honestly, I kind of just want to get on to the next story and just end the video here and forget Steve even exists. That's all I want to do. And that's what I'm going to do. And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales tomorrow. Bye-bye.